मायंस 24 घंटे में गायब हुए हैं प्लेनेट अर्थ से। इट्स प्रूवन, इट्स नॉट लाइक मेरी कोई ओपिनियन है। 24 घंटे में पूरी पूरी सिविलाइजेशन ऐसे करके गायब हो गई। और उसकी कहाँ क्या मिला, उसका स्पेसशिप के मैप्स मिले उनके। ना होल्ड ऑन, इट्स नॉट अ कोइंसिडेंस दैट दे केम अप विद पूरा का पूरा स्पेस क्राफ्ट, और वो भी उसी डायरेक्शन में, एंड लिटरली हैंगर्स के साथ, टाइम नॉट्स के साथ, जो कि इस वक्त की एंड आई एम थिंकिंग कि सर टेस्ला के तो मैंने तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ उसके
कोट्स पढ़े हैं।
नहीं कोट्स के अलावा भी मैंने कुछ पढ़ा, मगर उसकी वो वाली चीज़ पढ़ी है कि जो उसको कुक बनाती है, ये तो कंस्पिरेसी थ्योरिस्ट है वो एट बेस्ट, जो कि उसको प्रेजेंट इस तरह किया गया। दैट्स एग्जैक्टली द जॉब। जब एक बंदा इस लेवल के ऊपर काम करेगा कि जिसके प्रूफ आ भी चुके होंगे, मगर उसको अगर आपने रिफ्यूटेबल करना होगा इन द माइंड्स ऑफ रेगुलर पीपल, जाके आपके सामने पॉलिटिकल मूवमेंट ना स्टार्ट हो जाए, क्योंकि इट्स ऑल अबाउट पॉलिटिक्स बाय द एंड।
फ्री एनर्जी का जो आइडिया था।
Science is about reproducibility. I can have the most brilliant, crazy, fun idea ever, and if I perform an experiment and no one else can duplicate that experiment, it belongs in the trash heap. It's me in my own world, thinking I have landed on an objective truth, when in fact I haven't. That's how science works, the reproducibility of results. As for the work of Tesla, much of it had very real value to physics and our understanding of electromagnetism. And that value is duly recognized by my community in the naming of a unit of electromagnetism after him. You can't get more badass than having a unit named after you. Newton has a unit named after him. For example, the metric unit of force is a Newton. Much of the rest of his work was fringe and unrealized, either for violating known laws of physics or for being simply impractical. Just because you do some good stuff doesn't mean everything you ever did is going to be great.
अब रही बात ये इल्यूमिनाटी कहां से मैंने बीच में डाल दिए, उसका मैं आपको सबूत देता हूं। इस वक्त दुनिया में अभी भी 2019 में इस रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है, 2019 तक द एबोरिजिनल्स ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड वर्शिप ए सर्टन टाइप ऑफ गॉड, जो एक खास बुत उन्होंने बनाया हुआ। एस्किमोस उसी बुत की पूजा करते हैं। मायंस ने वही बुत बनाया हुआ था साउथ अमेरिका में। ये 4 अलग कोने हैं दुनिया के। कनेक्शन थे। हाउ कम दे हैव द सेम स्ट्रक्चर्स? वही पिरामिड्स साउथ ईस्ट एशिया में, वही पिरामिड्स पाकिस्तान में, ये कोयटा में जो है, वही पिरामिड्स मिस्र में, वही पिरामिड्स यूरोप में, वही पिरामिड्स साउथ अमेरिका में, इक्वाडोर में, वही पिरामिड्स, एग्जैक्ट वही पिरामिड्स हैं।
Watching this show called Ancient Aliens on Netflix. So I can't sleep now. Why do the pyramids of Egypt match those in Mexico? The pyramids in Egypt don't actually match the pyramids in Mexico. They are different in substantial ways. The king is buried in a small chamber underneath the pyramid in Egypt. The pyramids, as you see them today, look like giant staircases. They're a little bit rough, and that's not how they would have looked anciently. So the final step in making a pyramid would have been to clad it in very fine limestone and then to shave the sides to make it perfectly smooth. So this would have been not something you could climb anciently. The pyramids in Mexico are not tombs at all. These are bases for temples, and the temples are approached by going up the pyramid. That said, why do they look similar? Why is this basic form of a pyramid found in multiple so different places of the ancient world? And there the answer is pretty simple, and it's that there's not that much you can build of that size without modern technology and without steel. So to get a really tall structure out of stone, it needs to be smaller at the top than it is at the bottom. So there's not all that many things you can build that would get that tall using this technology. And that's really, we think, why we see what looks superficially similar in such different places in the ancient world.
अब वो मेसोपोटामियन टैबलेट्स सुमेरियंस कहती हैं कि वो इदरीस जो था उसने पिरामिड बनाया और ऊपर की तरफ ट्रैवल करता था पिरामिड्स के थ्रू। हमें निकोला टेस्ला के थ्रू पता चलता है कि हाँ वही वाली टेक्नोलॉजी उसने उसी शक्ल की उसी स्ट्रक्चर की बना के उसने एनर्जी स्ट्रेटोस्फेयर में ट्रांसफर करने की कोशिश की हुई थी और कर भी रहा था सक्सेसफुली, और इसलिए मारा भी गया क्योंकि वो तो फिर मुफ्त की एनर्जी मिलनी थी।
This was the stage for Tesla's ambitions, a lab on Long Island known as Wardenclyffe. It's not much to look at now, but in 1901, Tesla scraped enough money together to build a massive tower. This octagon right here is where the tower once stood, almost 57 meters high. The structure showcased some of the same technology as the Tesla coil, and it was supposed to replicate the Tesla coil's party trick, too.
So he envisioned building a very large structure that could transmit power to an entire city. And you wouldn't have wired power or even metered power, you simply would have power.
Brian Field is a physicist and professor at Farmingdale State College. He gave us the full rundown of the tower's proposed functions.
He also envisioned being able to power boats at sea and be able to power things in flight. And on top of that, he wanted the same system to be able to broadcast information.
All these plans hinged on Tesla's belief that both the ground and the sky were good conductors of electricity. Basically, that electricity could be transported through them. So he imagined a network of towers, some zapping power into the ground and some pulling it back up for local use. The towers might also shoot electricity through the air like lightning, lighting up cities from the sky and powering airplanes. They'd even one-up radio transmissions of the time by sending text and images like early fax machines. He just needed more towers and money.
He had already drawn up plans to start to build another one outside of Glasgow and another one in Newfoundland as a way of transmitting data across the Atlantic.
So what would have happened if Tesla threw the lever and brought his invention online?
So Tesla was unarguably a brilliant person, but he was also very much a product of his time. And there was a few things that was missing from his scientific knowledge.
We now know that the Earth and the sky are not good conductors. In fact, they're good insulators of electricity. That means the tower itself was predicated on faulty science and doomed for failure, which, gazing back from the year 2020, seems obvious.
You have to understand that this structure was built before it was commonly accepted that there were atoms, let alone to understand how conductors worked at a molecular level. That was all a complete mystery to scientists of the time.
Brian looks back on the whole enterprise a little more charitably.
I think it's much more an example of somebody who was building on good ideas of the time and didn't know what he didn't know. And that was what was the shortcoming here.
अब मैं इन सब चीजों को कनेक्ट इसलिए कर रहा हूं क्योंकि इफ यू गो थ्रू द बुक ऑफ ईनॉक यू विल अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट वाज गोइंग ऑन और हारूत मारूत इतनी मैसिव पावर है इस कॉन्सेप्ट में इल्यूमिनाटी के, अपने इल्म के बेस के ऊपर वो जिस तरह के करिश्मे दिखा रहे हैं वो, क्योंकि हैं, वरना वो करिश्मे ना दिखाते जमीन तक कैसे पहुंच जाते, वो जमीन तक आने की एनर्जी और पूरी की पूरी टेक्नोलॉजी है उनके पास। सो इल्यूमिनाटी का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है इसके प्रूफ अभी भी हैं। वही वाला बुत की पूजा कर रहे हैं इस वक्त इल्यूमिनाटी के पुजारी, अभी भी उसी तरीके से समझते हैं पावर है।